That is the sound of an enthusiastic amateur nailing his audio cues. Thanks for joining us today, folks. I'm Jim Reed, Bluff Sterini in the home game. This is the Rec Poker Podcast Forums Edition. I'd like to thank Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, and of course, website AMP. So just like every week, we are here in the Rec Poker forums, studiously looking at forum posts to find something educational and entertaining to bring to our Rec Poker audience. Just like every week, we're trying to steal each other's chips in the Rec Poker Nightly Play Money home game. And just like every week, because I have the best job in the world, I am joined by a panel of wizards here. Wizards, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and how Rec Poker Nation can get in touch with you?
Well, I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5x5 on PokerStars and Twitter.
I'm Eric Jin. I'm Binkley on the forums, COM Binkley in the home games, and Rec Binkley on Twitter.
I'm Keith Brandt. I'm Monkey System, just about everywhere.
I'm Kim Kilroy. I'm Fergie56 in the home game and Pat everywhere else.
I'm Rob Washam, and I'm Rabman50 just about everywhere.
I'm Taylor Moss. You can find me on Twitter at Taylor_Moss, and in the Rec Poker home game as Gopher Boy TJM.
I'm Troy Chapman. You can find me in the home games and pretty much everywhere as Chapo Australia.
Thanks, gang, for joining me this week. And as you know, premium members are always welcome on the Rec Poker Podcast. If there's a forum post that you'd like to talk about, just post it out there, and chances are we're going to talk about it here on the air. So along with our Wrecking Crew members, we've also got Keith and Troy with us tonight. And because we've got this dream team, we thought we would just run through a couple of these fantastic forum posts. So this is one from Troy, and it's a hand that he played online in the PokerStars home game. So we've got some common enemies here, including the one and only Monkey System. And so I'll just get right into the action, and we can talk about the points that we find interesting about it. So Troy is holding one of my favorite hands, the Ace-3 suited. I love those wheel aces. And he's in pretty early position, playing off a 28 big blind stack. So Troy opens from early position, I think from 200 to 440. So it's 2.2 size raise, which seems like the perfect size off that stack. We get a call from a middle position player. And then we get a very small 3-bet, which is interesting given the sizing. So the open raise was to 440. It got called. And then we get a raise from Money Mortis, another 560 to 1,000. So that's not that big. And then that gets cold called in position on the button by PokerCat36. And it comes back around to our man here, Chapo Australia, who has to decide what to do facing an additional 560 chips. So the pot is, let me see, 1,000, 2,000. There's got to be a little over 3,000 chips in here right now. It's 560 more to call. We are the original raiser, and there's one player still to act after us. So I'm always kind of torn in spots like this with these wheel aces because they play really well multi-way because you can flush somebody, but they've got those great qualities that make them good for re-raising as part of a bluff, a balanced bluffing range because they've got blockers. You can make a straight, you can make a flush. Panel, when you're in a spot like this, how do you decide between the different ways to play hands like this, specifically these wheel aces? And is there some way you feel like it's just the right way to play it in this spot?
Personally, what I did, I'll tell you what I thought of, right?
Yeah.
So it's another 2.8 bigs for me to flat it. And I smelled, so something smells when someone cold calls a 3-bet. So it means that, to me, it usually means they've got a pretty good hand, but they're not top of range and they don't necessarily want a 4-bet. So it's something I probably wanted to have a chat about. So I figured after the 3-bet and the flat, if I reopen, that's when things can get funky. So if I flat it, I'm pretty sure Keith's going to call along and close the action. And then I'm pretty much guaranteeing a four-way flop with a hand that can make the nuts, whether it be the wheel or whether it be the nut flush. That was my theory with it. And I do love playing wheel aces. That was the big reason as well.
And I do think that player that's behind you, they've already shown that they're in a calling mood today, right? Like with whatever they chose to call your open in position. So they could be planning some weird back raise with aces or something here, but I think you're right. Typically, they're going to be inclined to call along. So I like that thinking about how they're going to play their range there.
I have a quick something to say. I like those suited aces too as speculative hands that can make the nuts. I think that your antenna your spidey senses were correct when you get the cold call of the 3-bet.
Mm-hmm.
That like screams strength to me. And also, we're only 28 big blinds deep in this hand. And I don't think that this is a hand that you can play as a speculative hand when we're only 28 big blinds deep. So I think that in this case, I like your open, but I think in this case, I would have folded to the 3-bet and the call, even though we're getting absolutely fantastic odds.
And so let's talk a little bit about that calling range of the button player, because I think a couple folks have mentioned it here. So just put yourself in their position. Early position raise or call opens. We get a call. Someone else 3-bets, and now it's on you in position. What are you calling with there? Like you're ditching a lot, and you're 4-betting most of the other stuff, right? That's almost always like tens, jacks, something like that. What are you thinking, Rob?
I'm thinking, what is the big the button's stack size comparatively? Is he deep?
Good question. The button.
They're fairly deep. They have about 10,000 chips. So
yeah,
50 odd big blinds.
Okay. Then I was thinking that he's going to speculate from the button, knowing that he's got position on everybody with probably some suited connectors and some small pairs.
I think that's still a little bit too wide for. I think it was Jim that just said it. Like you have an early position open, a call, a 3-bet, and then now it's on you. I think they're probably ditching a lot of those, but a lot of people call in those spots with hands that are 8s maybe, but 9s, 10s, jacks, and ace queen. Like it's that like I'm in a good part, but I'm in that like not great but decent hand strength.
And what do you think about that, gang? Because like let's say you're in this spot with like 9s or 10s or something like that. You're essentially, do you feel like you're set mining in that point when you do that? Because like I'm not sure the math is there. Like should it just be a fold, I guess is what I'm saying, in that kind of spot instead? Like should it just be a fold? Like should you even have a calling range here?
Or a shove.
Right.
It could be a shove.
Yeah.
But
It
I don't
be a
think it should ever
raise.
flat.
Right. A raise or a fold, I think, is what you should be doing in that spot. A cold calling a 3-bet is very seldom a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, I'm yet to act, right? And I've still
Yes.
and I'm at the moment, my range is completely uncapped.
True. Yeah, good point.
So if they flat, this is the part that I've always wondered about, right? So if they're flatting, they're just hoping to hell that what happens is they get to the flop.
And improve.
Really, that's all they want to do.
No, but
right?
like
Just, yeah.
if they
Yeah,
felt
they're
like
not
they
doing it
could,
with
if
aces.
they felt like they could win without improving, they'd get it in. So it's like they need to get to the flop and they need to improve. And it's like that's not going to happen often enough to be calling in that spot, right?
So is there a calling range there at all? I suppose is your first,
Good question.
at
What do you
all.
think? What do you think, gang?
Personally, I don't like anything.
Not at this
They-
stack depth. If we're
Yeah,
a
the
lot
stack
deeper,
depth, yeah.
like
That-
then we can find some flats. If we're like 80 big blinds deep, then we don't really maybe want to get all our fists in the middle, but not at this stack depth. We just gotta shove or fold.
Okay, so just there, Chris, if you are deeper, why not just 4-bet?
I mean, you
'Cause
could.
I'm still to act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably would a lot, but I mean, I might. I think there can be a case to be made for flatting if we're like 80 big blinds deep. But I mean, I think there's a case to be made for raising, especially this 3-bet is so small.
Yeah, it's weirdly small.
It's weirdly small. So
It's almost like a click back, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
from that range what that position, that person only has 24 big blinds. So I think from the range of hands that they want to call a 3-bet with and all of the dead money that's already in the pot, they should probably be going all in here
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
any hand that they want to call with.
Hmm. Yep, I think that's right. And I think people get afraid of shoving in the 20s or like up to 30 big blinds or something because they feel like, oh, well, I've only got pocket tens. Like, how good a hand can it be here? And that's true. But the fact is, like, I think people don't credit how deep you really should be shoving in some of these spots, because as we've said, calling is not really a better option. So you don't get to compare it to, oh, I'd rather be shoving with aces. Well, yeah, we'd all rather be shoving with aces, but you have to make money from these other hands in the best possible way.
I can see aces as the only hand to call with.
That's what we're talking. Yeah. All right. So as it comes around to Troy, he does call, and as predicted, the other player calls as well. So we get 4-way to the flop. There's about 4,400 or something in there by the time the blinds and everyone's called this 1,000. And
About 22 bigs.
okay, perfect. Thank you. And the blinds are all out of the hand here. So it's only players that chose to get involved here. So the flop comes 6 of diamonds, 4 of diamonds, 4 of clubs. So it's a very interesting flop. We've got the ace 3 of diamonds. So we've got the nut flush draw. It's a paired board. It's not the kind of board that really smashes a lot of 3-bet ranges or cold calling ranges. But we're out of position. Does anybody feel like, again, we talk about this all the time on the show, sort of the default textbook play is just to check almost 100% of the time here. So that's what I think most people will do. Is there a consideration for leading here with a nut flush draw and a kind of scary board?
I think this is the flop we were hoping for. And I think one way or another, we're getting our chips in the middle. Like, this is our flop. This is why we
our
called.
I couldn't have asked for much better, right?
Right.
Right.
So my intent, the best of intentions, was to check, wait for the bet, and jam. And then stuff goes south as soon as I check.
So hold on. Before we go down that road too far.
But so that my plan
Yes.
before I've done anything was, if I check, I jam. And I was hoping that someone, whether it be Keith or I was actually hoping the 3-better would just c-bet the flop.
Right.
The person that had flattered would just get out of the way because they didn't improve, and I could jam. And I basically get almost, yeah. Basically, if I get called, I've got great draws anyway, and so be it. But as it turns out, plans and how things turn out aren't always aligned.
That's true. And it would be so much more accommodating of those players to play that way, wouldn't it, Troy?
It would, but is that a right? So I suppose, firstly, is that plan correct? Because if that's how I wanted to play it, regardless of what everyone else does, is that the right way to approach the hand?
Anybody want to jump in there?
I think for this flop, that's exactly the way you want to play it. And it doesn't
Check
matter
in.
what everybody else does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your chips have to go in.
Yeah.
Because you're so short. It's not like you're putting 100 big blinds in. You would never want to put 100 big blinds in, but you're just so short. You've already put in, I don't know, 8 big blinds or something. You only have like 5. So you only have like 22 or 23 big blinds back. So you know, and there's.
And that's there's about 20 big blinds in there or something, right? By the
Yeah.
time that
Yeah,
went all the way around.
it's almost a full. It's getting close to my starting stack.
Yeah.
Of the hand.
Yeah,
So-
I think there's just two things to consider here. I mean, the plan is correct. I mean, it's kind of just check jam this when you get the nut flush draw. Two things that don't make it like that great. One, it's a paired board, so some of your outs are potentially dirty outs or not actually what you think you're going to get. And two, when you take this route, since the pot is so big, you're unlikely to get fold equity, which is usually a great portion of like when you're thinking about the play of like, do I check jam? Fold equity is part of that equation that helps you out. You're probably going to be in a spot where you don't have a ton of fold equity here. However, you still have just the pure equity of hitting the flush. You're going to be able to beat the overpairs, the random hands that somehow connect with this board. You have better flush draws and other potential like king jack suited types of things. That's part of the benefit of having these wheel aces, is that you don't cover up other players' potential like flush draws when they are calling with king jack suited, king queen suited, queen jack suited, etc. You have a better flush draw than them. But yeah, just know like you could have asked for slightly better if just the 4 was maybe like a different card, just so you don't have the paired board to deal with.
Yeah, certainly this is the kind of flop you're looking for when you get involved in a hand like this. And just like Taylor says, yeah, if it wasn't paired, that would be about the only way we could improve it. But I think we're definitely, like Kim's saying, we definitely feel like we own this flop. We want to get some chips in here. So, but as the post says, this is the name of the post is calling with implied odds and pre-flop, and things get weird post-flop. Yep, exactly correct. So what ends up happening is we check, the next player, who's Keith, also checks. Then the C-better makes a bet for about, looks like about half pot maybe. And we get a raise from the player behind who cold called the 3-bet first. And then it comes back
They
to
jam
Troy.
all in, don't they? Yeah, no,
They jam all in. Good point. Yeah, sorry.
And it's a short raise.
Yes.
Yeah, so the cold caller of the original 3-bet jams.
And they jam
Over the
over. They jam
Over the
over
C-bet.
less than the size of the bet. But yeah.
Mhm.
So they're very comfortable. They're very comfortable with the equity that they have in the hand at the moment, it seems. And it comes back around to us. So this is the real moment that Troy was talking about before, where we're kind of put to a decision now. I think to call is all in for us now, or very close to it. And the pros and cons are the pro. We've got a really good drawing hand. We still have ace high also, so we might be ahead of some of the other hands that might be getting involved. Or at least we've got the 3 outs if they do have that, pocket queens, pocket jacks, 10s, 9s, whatever. So we're getting great odds, but we have to call all in a tournament. And everyone always tells us that we shouldn't be calling all in in a tournament. But we're getting such great odds. All right. So how do you guys deal with this kind of tension, and how do you decide what to do in spots like this in real time when we don't have time to like crunch everybody's ranges and that kind of thing? Anything jumping out?
I don't think it's not exactly a calling off all in. They raised to 3,700 and he's got about 4,500 back, I think.
Yeah, good point.
So if he jams it all in over the top, the original C-better may fold here.
Yeah, he can't put that in.
Right?
Yeah,
Which
you're
makes
right.
it better, right? You can potentially have fold out somebody's equity.
Yep.
And
Right.
then, right. And you get to see all 4 cards to realize, or all the cards to realize your equity to try and hit your flush. And when that person goes all in for that short amount, you're putting them on exactly what you're putting them on, which we thought was probably a pair of some sort of middling pair, which they feel is good now because we've got a 6 high flop.
Yeah, and it means that probably your ace is good, but probably one of your diamonds is bad. I mean, potentially not, but could be, right?
Right.
So, but you're still gaining outs. Like, so that's one thing. I mean, if we're ranging this person correctly, we're almost certain they've got 9s, 10s, or jacks at this point. Once they do this shove.
Yeah, and
And
what
I
Chris
think we
is
have fold equity against the original.
Well, against the other person, but I'm
See
talking about
better. Yeah.
the short stack person who's just shoved is like
Right.
there is no clear signal that this is what this hand is, because they don't have ace queen anymore.
right. And when Chris says that our ace is good, he means that the 3 aces that remain in the deck, if our opponent does have a hand like jacks or queens or 10s or something, it's good. But the jack or queen of diamonds that might complete our flush would now complete a full house for them. So we're kind of losing 1 out, but we're gaining 3 outs. So we're kind of still gaining outs, which is what Chris is getting at there, which I love. So, okay. So then is this just a simple math question? What else should we be thinking about in this spot? Because again, Troy's got 30 seconds now to make this decision. It's gone bet shove in front of him. What else should we be thinking about when we're trying to decide what to do?
Personally, as played, I figured that if I'm keeping around about 20 to 22 bigs, I like playing it around that sort of stack size with that short stack ninja stuff. So if I fold and get out of the way and let these 2 guys duke it out, I can live to fight another day and find something that's not going to be a draw. And that was the way and that was the reason I found a fold.
So you can also think about your edge versus the field. So like Troy is saying, he's going to still have 20 big blinds. He feels comfortable playing that if he feels he has a skill edge versus the players still remaining. That's something to consider.
Yep. I like that for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, in this spot, you almost, if you're going to call, you kind of want the other person to call. I mean, I guess fold is better because then the equity goes away too, but or their whatever equity they potentially have. But, going multi-way with a flush draw when you have the potential of essentially hitting the nuts is, I mean, good. Like if you get this flop and all 9 players at the table are all in, like that's a great spot for you, right? Because like you're going to hit your flush 1 out of 3 times roughly, I think is the close math. And, 3-way pot, that's about break even. If it were hypothetically 9-way, that's great. You've got great odds there, but it's just kind of that spot of like, if I gave you all the correct math and it was break even or close to break even, how do you decide? And Eric makes a good point, field advantage, like where do you stack up against everyone else? Do you think you can maybe make it back later? Did you just drive to this tournament? Can you rebuy? Are we close to the money? Are we not close to the money? All those things potentially come into play when you're making this decision here.
Yeah, and it's a tricky spot. I always feel like I'm torn between these kind of, I've got all these outs, I'm getting such good odds, didn't drive all this way just to fold, even when I'm just driving to my office. So yeah, it's an interesting spot. So Troy, you did end up folding here, and being results oriented, we can say it was a good fold.
We should just say no. We don't have to go any further. The hand, because the problem is when you look at the results, it changes what you think the way you should have played. The way you should have played is the way you should have played, regardless of the results.
It's
But,
true.
I wanna know if we ranged
but in the
the
way
guy-
that we've read, sorry, Rob, keep going.
I'm sorry. I just want to know, did we range him properly?
That was what I was going to say. Yes, we did.
I want to know, did we range him
Yes,
properly?
I was
And that-
right.
So you can always look at the
There's not
results
much
for
in
that.
this game that I actually get right, Rob, but I had it right this time.
So here, before we spoil everyone at home, so think about, so it does go to showdown. Troy folds, the next player folds, and the original C-better calls. So the 2 action players do go to showdown here. So pause the podcast and think about what you think they had when they 3-bet small and when the player called in position. And then we can say here, drum roll, please. The winning hand was pocket jacks. That is what the cold caller did have, pocket jacks. The original 3-better made a very small 3-bet with ace of spades, king of spades, and did not improve. So I think we can take a few notes out of that. I think that 3-bet from the ace king player probably should be a little bigger, given that it was a squeeze. There was multiple players in the hand. That might have changed how the button player played. I don't know about that. But just in a vacuum, I think that sizing should be a little bigger. And as we were talking about, like the player with jacks that called in position, maybe just don't even have a calling range. If your calling range is so narrow that like 6 out of 8 people can say, "Oh, that's jacks." You're not really doing yourself a favor by getting into a spot where your range is that narrow. Chris?
And I'll just add something too. When you're the 3-better and you have a hand as strong as ace king suited, and it goes 4 ways, and you get a flop like this one, you're not obligated to c-bet. You're absolutely not obligated to c-bet, and I would never c-bet this hand with because you're so excited. You've got this premium hand. You 3-bet, and then suddenly there's 4 people joining you to the party, and then you hit a flop with 4-4-6, and you're like, well, I got a c-bet because I'm the aggressor, but you're just gonna get into this kind of spot.
Just burning money, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, Chris, as a question, sorry it's not my, I'm not running this thing. So I opened a 2.2, Keith flats, another 2.2. What are you suggesting that old mate who had the ace king suited should open to avoid? Because ultimately he should, I'm assuming, if I'm right here, ace king at this point in time with the sort of stacks they have, he 3-bets to a proper range. Jacks goes, I've got no other option here. I jam and I get out of the way. It's basically it's a trivial fold. I move on. And Keith, well, I'm assuming Keith gets out of the way because I never actually found out what he had.
I don't know what I had. I don't remember.
We're on the button, right? And we're on the button with ace king. No, the jacks is on the button. So
he's in the cutoff.
Right?
Yeah,
cutoff.
So and the original open was 440. I don't know what others would be doing. I'm 3-betting.
Sorry, so it was 2.2. Sorry, 2.2.
Yeah, 2.2 big blinds. Yeah.
So I'm raising this to around 7 or 8 big blinds.
Yep.
Yeah,
I was going to say 8.
8 jumped out at me, and even though we've only got 28 big blinds, I guess the 3-betting player is actually a little deeper than that. So yeah, 8 sounds right. 8 sounds right.
If this had been played optimally, I think it would have been all in pre-flop between 2 players for a race.
Yeah.
8.8. Sorry, 8 bigs. The jacks goes, well, I'm good enough to run with it here. They jam. I get out of the way. Keith gets out of the way. And they get to see their hand.
Yeah, and you can just see why that ace king player, they didn't forward their goals with the sizing that they chose. Like they'd be better off just to call in position, or make a bigger 3-bet. I just don't think the small 3-bet like that. It just doesn't. If it only creates trivial decisions, then you're not really helping yourself, but you're not putting anyone in a tough spot. You didn't put Troy in that tough a spot with a hand like ace 3 suited because he was getting such good odds. So yeah, I would say that was one thing. The 3-bet sizing stands out. Oh, have we not heard from our good friend Jonathan Little yet? Let's see if he has any tips or tricks for what we could get up to next.
Have you ever wondered whether you should call a preflop raise or 3-bet instead?
It's like he's in our brain.
What do you do when you have a flush draw? Do you raise it or do you just call?
Is he made for this hand?
What do you do with ace king when you miss the flop?
Don't see that.
Are you tired of guessing about what the right play is with your particular hand? Well, my name is Jonathan Little, and I am a 2-time World Poker Tour champion and creator of PokerCoaching.com, where we offer over 1,000 interactive hand quizzes where you play a hand and then get real-time feedback from our world-class pros. Don't guess and don't stress. Just register for your free account at PokerCoaching.com/RecPoker right now.
And if he finds out that any of you have been guessing or stressing, there's going to be a problem. There's going to be a real problem. You don't want to see Jonathan Little when he's angry. I would go to pokercoaching.com/recpoker right now. Money back guarantee, folks. Don't forget that. All right.
What's he going to do when he realizes you're heckling him during his little pitch there?
You mean
Like,
bantering with him in a supportive and friendly and encouraging way, Taylor? Is that what you mean?
okay, I'm going to do that when you start talking from now on.
That's why we miss Taylor on the chats editions of the podcast. We record too early for Taylor to join us. We need this joie de vivre from you, my friend.
You kept heckling me and I left.
Actually, secret, we heckle you a lot more now that you're not there. Just to put the word out. There's a minor amount of heckling that goes on, but it all gets released out on the air, at least I promise.
Right.
All right. Well, let me see. Any other thoughts here? Wheel aces, calling versus raising, stack sizes, ranging opponents. What other kind of lessons can we wrest from this? I know we covered it all so well. It's like we're getting good at this or something.
If
Kim?
you have a plan, go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess one thing that we didn't talk about, does anybody call at the end there or make the reshove? Because I think we didn't actually definitively get on it, but I think it does seem like a spot that maybe you got to kind of hold your nose and just continue with the hand anyway, right? As played. Yep. Cool. I just like any excuse to get my chips in the middle. I'm just glad.
If I call the 3-bet, I'm getting him in the middle here.
Yeah, when you get that kind of SPR with that particular hand, that sounds good to me. All right. Well, I'd like to thank Running Aces, Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, and of course, website AMP. Keith, Chris, Kim, Rob, Eric, Troy, and Taylor. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me tonight and talking poker. And we'll see all y'all again next week. Take care.